ArcGlobe is a global 3D visualization and analysis environment for ArcGIS. It's provided through the 3D Analyst extension for ArcGIS. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that you can do using ArcGlobe. ArcGlobe allows us to see the world in many different ways. We can interact with a three-dimensional globe. We can then choose what base layers of imagery we want to display on top of our globe. For example, I can turn on and display the world with clouds, or I could display the world looking at the differences in ice with and without the ice, or I could look at the world at night. These are all different base level images that we can choose to display on top of our globe. In this example, as we zoom in, you can very clearly see the difference between night lights of South Korea versus North Korea. And we can choose to look at all kinds of different data on top of our globe. The idea with ArcGlobe is that you should be able to integrate any of your GIS data on top of the globe and start to look at the world and your GIS data in a global perspective. So in this example, we've simply turned on the locations of all the countries around the world. But imagine what the world would look like if we didn't define political boundaries based upon the current countries, but instead based upon the languages that people speak. This is a thematic map that shows the dominant language of all these different areas. And if you identify each one of the areas, you can start to read in the attributes about the dominant language and some of the other information associated with these areas. So the idea is to take all your GIS data and be able to look at it on top of a globe instead of just looking at it in a two-dimensional map. If you come over here to Indonesia, it's interesting to look at the proliferation of different languages, and then you can start to make some analyses or conclusions and start to compare this kind of information against other factors such as political instability and other things that may be important to your organization if you are starting to look at some of these different and interesting areas. If you want to look at data beyond just land-based information, for example, you want to look at the oceans, we can take our globe and we can start to display thematic data over the oceans. For example, coral reef hotspots around the world, or from general dynamics, the economic zones and fishing zones of the countries, or the shipping lanes, and how product moves from one port to another. So these are all examples of taking different types of geographic data, of GIS data, and being able to visually represent this on top of a globe, in addition to being able to look at it in a two-dimensional map, as many of us are familiar with. Now the next thing we want to be able to do is look at more detailed information. ArcGlobe isn't just about being able to look at global data sets, but it's about the concept that we should be able to zoom in on the globe and see more and more detailed information. In this case, I'm going to use the Gazetteer tool, which actually is a web service that connects to the ArcWeb Placefinder. So we're actually now tying in web services, but the idea is that I should be able to type a place that I would like to go visualize or see on the globe, in this case Haiti. I can then choose that from the list of sources that were returned from the Gazetteer service, and it navigates to this particular location. Now as we started to zoom in, you saw additional high-resolution imagery displayed. So we're supporting multiple resolution of terrain and image data. And as I drop the globe into a perspective three-dimensional view, you can see our globe is not just about a round or spherical globe, but it's about the ability to see our data in 3 dimensions, to look at the terrain data, and to fly over, in this case, a Landsat mosaic that's provided with the ArcGlobe application so that you can visualize broad areas, regional and continental areas, using some of this medium resolution Landsat data. Now one of the questions that people always ask is, well, how far in can you zoom in with ArcGlobe? The answer to the question is really up to you. It's how much data do you want to add into the application. We've provided this 150-meter Landsat mosaic for the entire world, but then you can easily add high-resolution footprints or high-resolution data sets for the areas that are of interest to you. In this case, we're going to zoom into Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and you can see the footprint of a Digital Globe QuickBird satellite scene. This is the highest resolution commercial satellite imagery that's available. And as we zoom in, you can see higher and higher level detail until we're looking at the National Palace in white and the police headquarters in blue. Or if we pan the map to the west, northwest, we can move out towards the coast until we find the U.S. Embassy. So these are examples of how we use multiple resolution data and the seamless nature for navigation that ArcGlobe employs, so that you can seamlessly zoom in, zoom out, and pan through these various resolution data sets. You can navigate to other interesting parts of the world and start to explore interesting concepts geographically as well. For example, if we zoom into this area in Colombia, as we zoom in, we'll see another high-resolution quickbird scene. And as we start to look closely at this scene, you can actually see some of the areas of the Amazon jungle that have been cleared from timber. They use a slash and burn technique, so you can actually see those cleared out areas. As we zoom in further, the image will transition to a panchromatic 61 centimeter resolution scene. So we actually can go from the color multispectral very quickly to the panchromatic, and we can use this to start to identify differences in agriculture. In this case, you can see in the center part of the screen a coca field that's been planted by the changes in just minor differences in the color of the multispectral signature and the texture patterns of the fields versus the Amazon tree canopy to help us identify the locations of coca fields in Colombia. So these are just a couple of quick examples of how you can use this multiple resolution imagery and terrain data to start to understand a little bit about the world that you live.